Okay. For still life sketch number one, what you're doing is choosing one of the 5 small still lifes, which is a group of objects arranged together, and then drawing them. The difference here is that you've got multiple objects and they have relationships to each other, so you want to look for and be aware of that. So just like I was drawing anything from observation, I'm going to look for any shapes that I recognize first. In this case, I also want to look at the sizes of those shapes and where they relate to each other. Now, seeing as this image is within a frame, I can kind of set myself up with those parameters by kind of sketching out a space. This is almost a square that I'm working with here. So I'm going to give myself a square to work for. And this is, you can see this is considerably larger than a thumbnail sketch, where a thumbnail sketch was quite small. This is about as large as my palm, if not bigger. Yeah, so I'll work a lot about that big. So I'm looking, I see that there's a line for the desk or a countertop, whatever this is sitting on, kind of running along the back. That's maybe a little bit below a quarter of the way. And then even within that space, there's the edge of the front edge of the counter space here, which is all shaded in. That's all in dark value. And then everything's sitting on top of the counter with a lot of empty space behind it. So I've got some of the physical characteristics spelled out, and now I'm looking at the actual objects. There's this large vase, which has this very cone-like shape with the spout on the front. So when I'm placing this, I'm also looking at the size of this object in relation to the overall square. How much space is between the top of this and the top of the frame? How far away is it from the left and from the right? Where does it fit? Is it in the middle? And this one pretty much is in the middle. Right? Where does it sit on the surface? And I've got this pear shape right over here, which is overlapping. So I kind of got this front circle, and then I pulled it, this little, how it peeks out in the front. Okay. I notice that there is a little bit of distance between the pear and the edge. I've got the pitcher handle back here. And then I've got these cherries. I'm actually counting and trying to indicate exactly how many cherries I have and where they are. So as I'm doing this, the main difference is I'm looking for relationships between the objects. I'm looking for how big is the pear compared to the pitcher? I can measure that. I could be like, okay, it's about that far up, right? How big is the cherry in relationship to the pear and the pitcher? Where do these things fall? Where do the cherries fall over the pear? Right? Where does the spout line up with the cherries? So I see that this cherry is right below the edge of that spout. So I want to focus on getting those rough shapes into their approximate locations with a rough idea of their sizes. Okay, so it's a general map. It's kind of like a thumbnail sketch in the sense that I'm just getting the overall composition, but now, unlike a thumbnail sketch, it's a lot larger, and I'm going to add more detail and build more into it. So now I'm ready to start coming back and refining things. I notice that this, and wherever you want to start, it's up to you, but I'm going to now start running my eye along edges, right? Carefully examining, seeing how things line up. I notice that the bottom of the pear is actually even with the bottom of the pitcher. And that kind of comes up here. And then there's this textured banding that comes across the pitcher. And that's about, it's about halfway, right? And the cherry is going to be a little bit lower, a little bit bigger. It's not a perfect circle. It's like a little bit oblong. And I see a little corner there. This comes up, and then there's this texture of these. Now, I'm not going to count and get each of these individual ones, but I do want to definitely show the texture on there. So the picture is a lot higher, and it's got a curve on the top. It's not a straight line. There's the little bit of a stem here. And that chair is a little bit larger over here. This one's definitely a lot larger over here. And this one is this big one back here. A little bit of one here. Another big one here, and another one tucked behind. So I'm looking how each cherry, where the curves hit into each other, right? It seems like it's overwhelming. You might be tempted to just like draw a lot of circles. But when you break it down, it's not that many. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them right there, right? And then there's one little guy kind of hanging down here. The stem kind of comes off, got a little curve to it, breaks off there. And then I've got 3 big ones here, hanging a little bit above the pear. And I'm seeing that one there. And then the inside of the handle. So the handle is going to be a little bit lower because I can see the handle top underneath that cherry. And the handle is going to come right about into here on the pear. So I'm looking at how those things interact. I can't see the other side. And then there's going to be a little bit of a line below there. Okay. So now I'm fine-tuning kind of the locations of things. And tweaking. Right. So you can see it developing. And now I'm ready to start coming back and looking for some of the value. Right? So notice that this pear is very dark down here, but it's got a little bit of light hitting here and some softer shadows here. It's got a deeper shadow right behind the stem over here. And the stem itself is pretty dark. Each one of these ridges has a small shadow that's casting below it. There's a very dark shadow under the edge of both and being cast off to the side here. Each cherry is a little bit darker along the bottom, and it's even got like a highlight along the top. You got a little shine mark. I can see those little areas of shine. One thing you want to avoid is shading anything just straight gray. Like I wouldn't just go over this whole pear of gray because that's going to flatten the whole thing. If I have some gradient, if I can show a change from light to dark, especially if it's kind of a rounded object, that's really going to help pop out that form if you're going to see that change. And this is a sketch, so it can be sloppy. It can be, you'll notice that my sketches get more refined as I continue to work on them. You should see the same with yours, but I'm not worried about making it super clean. I'm still leaving a lot of my work on the page. Also, pay attention to where your values fall on the scale, right? You want to have lights, darks, and the mediums, and the stuff in between. You don't want it to all just be one tone. That's going to flatten it out as well. A little bit of texture on that edge. And I can even indicate some of the background. I've got some. I think it looks like they ran it through one of those Instagram filters where they kind of give it the, the shading on the edges. All right, kind of coming in. Now I can see that, comparatively, this front should be really dark. So I'll build that up. I'll go in a couple of different directions to fill the space. Smooth that out. Sharpen the edge back up. Yeah. And work my way through it, right? So this has been another 10-minute sketch. Obviously, I work a lot faster than most people, most of you guys do, but I want you to spend about 15-20 minutes on a sketch like this, trying to get the approximate sizes, relationships, locations, right? Shapes, relationships, then detail and value. Leave your effort on the page. I want to see your work. Good luck.